everyone. I'm Steph.
And I'm Lisa.
And together we are PD Connect. Thank you for joining us today. We have an amazing guest here that Lisa is going to intro. Just a little background for us. We are PD Connect. We teach exercise and education for people with Parkinson's, and we are a nonprofit in the San Francisco Bay Area, but virtually wherever you are. So feel free to join us at any time. And if you'd like more information about us, you can check us out at www.pd-connect.org.
And we are thrilled to be hosting for our first Monday of the month guest speaker series. Today is the first Monday of the month. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Kristin Rehder, who is a photographer and who is also a person living with Parkinson's. Kristin, we are just thrilled to have you, and take it away.
Okay. Lisa, I'm going to need some help figuring out how to get to my screen to get my PowerPoint up.
Would you like us to put the PowerPoint up right now?
No, I'd like to put it up myself if I could.
Great.
So my whole screen is full of myself.
Oh, good.
Yeah, on the bottom, you should see that green share button.
Yes.
And still go to that.
Okie dokie.
And then you should see your PowerPoint. Here it goes.
Okay, so my PowerPoint is here. So let me just go here and here.
And there it is.
Got it.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Well done.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm very, very happy to be with you. I'm with you from Lancaster, Pennsylvania tonight. We're a hot state. There are a lot of people here all over our state buzzing around, as you know. So it's a busy time, and I'm thrilled to have been asked to talk to you a little bit about Parkinson's and photography, my photography. And I think we're going to have a good time together. So I'm going to jump right in. Okay, that didn't move.
Yeah, you can use that button down there. Do you see where your
the
cursor
arrow?
is?
Yep.
There you go.
Good, thank you. So we all have passions. And one might have thought that my passion would be photography from the time I was young. However, I didn't know anything about photography except what a Brownie camera could do when I went to camp until I got this book. And it was 50 years ago that I got this book from my honors advisor at the college that I went to. And she gave it to me as a celebration of my graduation. And it was a book about 10 photographers who are represented in the Museum of Modern Art's collection in New York by a woman who went to the college that I went to. And I was fascinated by this book and learned about the photographers and started looking at the images. And I would go to New York occasionally on business, and I would go to the Museum of Modern Art, and I would start looking at their photography collection. I wish that I could see you because I could ask you now how many people have been to the collection there or seen the exhibits there, but you'll know if you've been. One of the things that happened to me was that I was interested in modernism. I was interested in modern art and modern poetry and modern music in school. And so when I went to see the collection at the Museum of Modern Art, I fell in love with the straight photographers. The straight photographers followed on photographers who were pictorialists who used the camera to create painting-like images. But the straight photographers, starting with Paul Strand, and you see here the date of 1916, took quotidian or everyday objects and made them into art. And they used this beautiful black and white ability to capture contrast and to show light and to show pattern. And I'm going to show you a few more examples of this. This is Edward Weston's Cabbage Leaf. Edward Weston photographed famously the peppers. He photographed the cabbage leaf. He photographed things that he was growing, things that he found in the refrigerator. Later in life, he actually had Parkinson's and it stemmed his career, but he was a marvelous photographer. This image had a profound effect on me when I saw it. This is Minor White. His peeled paint was a landmark in straight photography because he took something that is just so ordinary and made it into something that was aesthetically very beautiful. Imogen Cunningham, a West Coast photographer, a California photographer, shot beautiful photographs of flowers, very sensual, very, very wonderful shape and form. And as you see, the contrast of black and white. Harry Callahan, I love this photograph, always have. It's just ironic that he was shooting Chicago and that instead of buildings and the wonderful financial district and the wonderful architecture, he shot the trees and called it Chicago. So I'm going to go to a few of my images and to say that because you've seen some of the images that I loved when I was younger, it's not surprising that when I began to photograph, which was right around 1979, 1980, I took up the camera myself. And when I began to photograph, I was photographing the kinds of things that I had seen and the kinds of things that I loved about modern life. So pattern, texture, diagonal lines, all of these things are very prominent in my work. I have, yes, there I am, good. This is just a celebration of movement and shape. That's, I won't even say any more about it. But here you see the beginnings of my fascination with trees that started with Harry Callahan and includes many, many photographers who have worked in the out of doors. And here just a little irony of the two chairs outside the set table that is inside in Provincetown. And these are the pairs of a friend of mine, Liza Alther, who was the author of Kinflix, and this is at her house, and you see the tree outside, the reflection of the pair in the window, and then the pairs lined up just as I saw them when I went upstairs at her house. And I put this in because I didn't always photograph in terms of shapes and inanimate objects. I loved to photograph people. I wasn't as good at photographing people. But this is Andy and Alex, my dear friends who had been at a field day and had won a ribbon. And this is their dog, Abby, laughing with them. When I did begin to work in color, I put it off for a long time. I didn't like digital photography. I was in love with film. But I think that you can see in a couple of images that I've put in that same sense of contrast and light and movement and pattern, the repeating circles. This is my friend Alex. This was on solstice morning. And for those of you on the West Coast, I just want to mention that my partner and I have a place on Lopez Island in the San Juan Islands. And we go there and I photograph there quite a bit every summer. This is the ferry over from Anacortes to Lopez, and I think, again, you can sort of see the patterns and the things that I was interested in, which I carried over to my color work. So in 2009, I decided that I would go get a master's degree. I didn't have to have one. I made my living as a writer and editor for colleges and universities, and a master's wasn't required for what I was doing. So I was 60 when I actually got my master's, and I was able to shape my own program in the cultural history of photography. And it was a wonderful 2 years that I spent doing that. And I think I finished in 2010. During that time, I got very interested in civil rights photography. I am a Southerner. I grew up in North Carolina. The civil rights movement was always part of my life and my sensibility and my passion. Martin Luther King Jr. had a concept that he sometimes referred to as the beloved community. And the beloved community is the idea that we will create justice and fairness and respect and honor for all people now, instead of waiting until we've reached the promised land where all things will be redeemed. And he and his followers were actively engaged in trying to create that beloved community in so many ways. And I wondered if, and this was while I was still in school, could I take a camera and use it to build a sense of community, a sense of even beloved community? And so my first project, which was my master's thesis, was a community project set in the Adirondack Mountains and a community there. And my next project, which I'm going to show you, was a project set in Lancaster, PA. At the same time that I was getting a master's in the cultural history of photography, which was helping me know what other photographers had actually done and why they had done the work that they had done, I decided to get a certificate in documentary studies at Duke University. And that is a particular focus on how to create a document and is often related to social activism. So I thought it would be a great thing for me to add to the experiences that I was having. And during that time, I developed a couple of themes. One was community, and the other was a sense of place. And I was learning about the environment and the authenticity of one's own place within the environment, which interested me. Again, I'm sorry that I can't see you, because if I could see your faces, I could see whether some of this is registering for you, but I'm gonna go in faith. The second project that I wanted to show you on community is called Where Hope Finds Home. And it was my first really significant project that was shown up and down the East Coast. Where Hope Finds Home is focused on the refugees that have moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania from around the world, who were persecuted in their homelands, often lived in refugee camps, sometimes for 10 or 20 years, and were able to immigrate to the United States and to Lancaster specifically in this project through the United Nations and a United Nations agreement with the US government and a series of groups called VOLOGs, which are volunteer agencies like Church World Service and Lutheran Refugee Service and Catholic Charities that actually bring refugees into communities and help them settle and help them find a permanent home. What happened was that after I finished my master's, we moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania for various reasons, wonderful reasons, and we were living downtown in a loft. And I would go on a walk around the neighborhood to try to learn my neighborhood and those in proximity. And I would see people I didn't recognize from cultures and faiths and practices that just weren't familiar to me. And it turned out that I learned that we had refugees here from many, many countries. I did a project which I named Where Hope Finds Home, celebrating the refugees of Lancaster County. And in that project, I interviewed people from 19 different countries. I interviewed 63 people. I got a grant from the hospital to do this work, and we were able to find interpreters to help me. And I did a series of these portraits, and I just want to share some of them with you. So this is Tika and Tila from Bhutan. This is one of my favorite images in the project. I shoot these images that I do of people. I shoot them in natural light, and the eyes are always looking directly at you, so that I take the picture and then I exhibit the picture. I get out of the way. Your eyes connect with their eyes, and that's where the beloved community begins. This is Noor from Burma. He was part of the Rohingya. Very persecuted person, very beautiful person. I asked him to do something with his hands while he was standing there, and this is what he did, and I took the picture. This is Abed and Pia. They are from different countries, Somalia and Sri Lanka. They met at a refugee camp and immigrated to the United States together. So these are legal refugees that have come. They've changed our community for the better. They're entrepreneurial. They're devoted to family. They're so smart. They are, they have lived a hard life, and so they are very empathic about other people. And it has graced my life to meet these people and to be able to photograph them. This is Lucy and her children, and Lucy is from Central Africa, and she walked across the country barefoot with her children after her husband was killed. And this is Amani and Iman, and as you can see, they were from Gaza, twins in the project, and beautiful young women who are now professionals. One is a dentist and one is studying to be an architect. So that project changed me, and I felt very strongly that I wanted to do another project based on community. And I went out to Lopez Island that summer, so that was 2016. And fully intending to do another of these community immersions. And we went over to San Juan Island to the museum there. And there was a show there called Fragile Waters. And I'm not sure I really knew what it was going to be about. Excuse me just a minute. I'm just going to have a sip of water. I'm not sure I knew what it was going to be about, but when I walked into the room, I was a changed person. What was on the walls was a group of absolutely gorgeous, large images that all related to water on the planet. And it was a group show that had been put together after the BP oil spill. And in the show were Dorothy Kerper-Monley, a person from Massachusetts, Ansel Adams, and Ernest Brooks. So three very different photographers with work to show on the idea of water. And I saw these images of Dorothy Monley's on the wall. And maybe I'm just impressionable. I was changed again. The thing that changed me was not so much the photograph, but the idea that Dorothy Kerper-Monley was shooting in her own habitat, which is what we kind of learned to do in my documentary studies program. And also because I'm somewhat trained in visual ethnography, shooting something that is authentic to oneself just adds so many layers of meaning to the work. And I saw this work and I said to my partner, I have to get back to my black and white work. I have to do some of this work on the river that we love up in the Adirondacks. And so sure enough, true to my idea of doing something like that, which was absolutely crazy. I'll explain that to you a little bit. I did a project called Through the Narrows. Through the Narrows is an examination of a river called the Oswegatchie River in the Adirondack Mountains. I was shooting on the middle branch of the river, and I shot the project with a Rolleiflex camera. This Rolleiflex is older than I am. It was made in 1945. It's a twin lens reflex camera. You focus through the top lens and you shoot through the bottom lens. It's all manual and it only shoots 12 exposures at a time. And typical of me, I decided that I would shoot this project on the river from my kayak. I had never seen a woman in the Adirondacks photograph in this way. I did a lot of history on it. And what I wanted was to learn about water the way that Fragile Waters had taught so many people about water. I wanted to learn about our own water. And I wanted to photograph in a way that would allow me to blow up the images large so that if you saw the images, you would actually feel that you were floating into the images. You would feel the water all around you. So I was able to use this 2¼ negative that this camera makes to make images that were 40 inches by 40 inches, and you know, it makes a square image. So this was a crazy idea. If you can see my thumbs in this image, you see that I'm holding the camera. On one side is the focus. On another side, you set the shutter speed and the aperture. You photograph with your forefinger at the bottom of the camera, and you're looking down through the top into a glass focusing area that reverses the image. Now you can see in my pocket that I have a light meter because there is no light meter in the camera. I have on a PFD for safety. I have my glasses because I can't see anything when I'm looking at the camera. And all of this means that when I get on the water, anything can happen. So on the left of this image, you see the paddle just popped up into the image. Now I'm out on the water. Sometimes I'm a mile from home on the water by myself. And I only have 12 exposures because it's very hard to change the film in a boat on the water. The image on the right is the image that I ended up taking. And I want to just demonstrate this again. Sorry, let me just see if I can go back here. Yes. So the image on the left is reeds, and I was floating in the reeds. On the right, you can see the image that I ended up with, but this was an impossible image because you're focusing, when you're looking at the camera, you're looking down through the camera. You're focusing down, looking out straight. When you want to shoot something that's in the water, you have to turn the camera upside down, and you lose your ability to focus and to frame. So you have to guess at it. But on the right, you see the image, and I truly love this image because not only does it show the water and shows the reeds and the reflections, but it also shows that abstraction that I loved in my early adventures in photography. So I wanted to show you a few more of these images. This is the actual narrows that you paddle through. The rocks in the narrows are 600 million years old. And when you paddle through, the metaphor is, for me, through the narrows, it's into another world. It's into the rest of the river. It's into the Cranberry Lake. It's into the erratic boulders. It's into history and the mystery of water. And it's one of the reasons that I just love photographing in the environment, that this is where my wonder is. This is where the mystery is for me. This is where I'm called to be my true self and to write my poetry in my heart and to write it down when I get home. And it has that effect, as you all know, I'm sure, who are able to spend any time in the natural world. It has that effect on all of us, that it lowers our blood pressure, it lowers our stress hormones, it creates a sense of belonging because we are from the natural world. And so it's been very important for me to photograph it. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in just a minute. This is something I call the pyramid rock. This is an erratic boulder, probably also from 100 million years ago, from the last ice age that passed through the area. This is one of the little islands. You can see that I had to photograph early in the morning or late in the evening in order to get these shots, because you can't do anything on the water if the water's churning and you're trying to focus and set your parameters for the composition. One of the reasons I'm showing you this and showing you in some detail is you now see what kind of photographer I was. everything was tack sharp. Everything in the Rolleiflex is focused through a magnifying glass. It's tack sharp. And I photographed people's eyes just absolutely clearly. I photographed these settings with very careful focus and very careful depth of field so that you can see from the front of the image all the way back, but that has to be set on this camera. So one more little image that I want to show you, just because it's fun for me to show you this. While I was doing that project in the Adirondacks, I was also photographing in a beech grove here in Lancaster because I wanted to do something that was local in that sense of shooting my own habitat. And I did a series of shots in a beech grove that's in a public park here. And this is one of my favorite photographs that I've ever made. It's one of the only photographs that we have in our home because I don't really want to put all my photographs around. This is a weeping beach on a fog morning. And, you know, I sort of namaste this image. It does something for me. So now let's go to Tremor. So this was the work I was doing. This was the work I was accustomed to. These were the parameters I had set for myself. Loving my work, loving my projects. Back out to Lopez, summer of 2019, so 5 years ago. Look down one day and see a tremor in my hand. And can't explain that. Don't have any idea what that is. And I was seeing a body-mind person at the time because I was actually having trouble getting in and out of the car, and we're all familiar with this. And by the way, it's so nice to be speaking to family here, the family of our Parkinsons, and to support each other and to understand each other. It's a tremendous gift for me to be able to talk to you. So I went to Julianne, my body-mind person, and I said, I have a tremor in my left hand. My dominant hand is my right hand. And she knows me and knew that I was having trouble with my gait and other things. And she said, Kristin, I think you might have Parkinson's. And, and so I came home to Lancaster in the fall, went to a neurologist, didn't diagnose it right away because they usually don't, got 6 months and went back. And he said, yes, you have Parkinson's. And what happened to me was, at that moment was life-changing, because what was I to do? How was I to photograph? How was I to create these images that I loved and that I loved making, and the way that I made them and the way that I showed them to people? What was I to do? And I guess fortunately that was the time of COVID, and we had to be indoors and I couldn't do community projects. So I had a lot of time to think about this, but I couldn't really sort it out. And so around 2021, so 2 years later, after I discovered the tremor and my Parkinson's was advancing, but not rapidly, I went to my friend Rick Kent, who is a photography professor at Franklin and Marshall College here in Lancaster. And we do some projects together. And I said, Rick, I have this issue. I just don't know what to do. I'm lost. And he said, and Lisa, you and Steph will love this. He said, well, Kristin, maybe you need to do some energy work. And I said, energy work, what do you mean? And he said, well, why don't you do some Qigong? And he said, my wife, Shua, is a Qigong master. And I'll take you out to the park and we'll do some Qigong together. So the four of us went out to the park, and I don't know if all of you can see me, and I'm going to show you a film that actually demonstrates this in a minute. But as we were sort of reaching for the light and chasing the light and chasing the wind and you know, pushing the clouds away and flying like a bird, and I held my hand up, my hand was doing what everything in the environment was doing. It was shaking, but the leaves were all moving in the wind, and the sun was dappling through, and the birds were flying in and out, and there were butterflies, and there were clouds flying by. And I just looked at my hand and I thought, my hand is just doing what that's doing. I'm just part of that. And if I can figure out how to take a camera and actually demonstrate this, maybe somebody will make the connection too for themselves. So I came home, and fortunately, this is our backyard. Our backyard is about the size of a football field at this community that we live in now, which is a long-term care community because of my Parkinson's. And they're cattails, as you can see, and they're beautiful trees and they're grasses. And so for a year, I photographed here. And I photographed in all seasons. And I started to make these images. And so now you're going to see something that's quite remarkable, because I told you at the beginning of the project that the pictorialists used a camera to make images that looked like paintings, and the straight photographers didn't like that. They wanted the camera to have its own provenance. And so I'm back to making images that look like impressionist paintings. But what happens is I set the shutter very slow. I use a low ISO for those of you who know cameras. I compose the image, and I let the Tremor take the picture. So I'm the composer, I'm the seer. The Tremor takes the picture with the Tremor. I fire the shutter, and nature gives me the picture. And this is what happens. So let's see if I can now show you this. So I'm going to show you some examples from the first Tremor project. These are the 3 signature trees that are just across the way. These are the same 3 trees in reflection in the cattails in the early morning before the sun came up. You saw the picture that I made of reeds on the water that I love so much, that I told you was a kind of abstraction, and you saw that I was having trouble with that. These are the reeds that actually grow in the pond here. A whole different experience of the reeds. This is first snow. These are the snowflakes that were falling on the first snow that we had in that season in 2022. And this is just after the full moon. There are 3 diptychs in this particular exhibit. And one of the reasons I love this diptych is on the left, and these images were shot within seconds of each other. On the left, my Tremor makes this diagonal pattern. On the right, same set of trees, a little bit closer in, the Tremor made these chevrons, these sideways V's, shot at really within seconds of each other, and really demonstrating to you how important the Tremor is to this work. It is absolutely central to this work. This is the last image that I created in the project. It is of late afternoon sun coming into the hackberry trees that are up on the ridge. It's also a diptych, and amazingly, the 2 trees that are on the left of this image, the one in the center and the V-shaped one, are the same trees that are in the right image. It's just that the left image was shot slightly differently, a slightly different shutter speed from the right, and just a few seconds later. So I had an interesting thing happen while I was working on this project. The museum in the Adirondacks called the Adirondack Experience, which has some of my work in its permanent collection from the River Project, got in touch with me and asked if they could include me in a series of films that they were making about artists in the Adirondacks. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. I have Parkinson's, and I think it would be very hard for you to photograph me or film me while I am vibrating like this. And they said, oh no, we're really interested in hearing your story. And they said, and we would like to come down and we would like to interview you. And then we would like to go out in the field and watch you work and photograph you, video you while you're working. And I said, and they said, and maybe you'll get an image that you'd like to put in your upcoming show. And I said, well, that's really kind of a tall order, that you want to photograph me while I'm working and you think I might get something. And they said, yeah, well, let's see what happens. So they flew down here from Boston and we spent 2 days together. And in fact, this was the last image that I shot. And I processed it while they photographed me, while they filmed me processing it. I do the processing on the computer now, not in a dark room. And it got into the show, and it also got into the film. And I think, Lisa, we're going to see if we can now make this happen. Yes, we can. So this is the film that they made. It's 4 minutes long.
Hang on.
My name is Kristin
Hold on.
Rehder, and I am a
Um,
documentary
Can we
photographer.
pause that for a second, Kristin?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
We can't see it.
Okay.
This is when I'm gonna share my screen so that we can see it.
All right.
Okay?
You want me to stop mine?
Yeah, I can do it from mine.
Okay. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Get this one here. Okay. You all can see that.
My name is Kristin Rehder, and I am a documentary photographer. I'm proud to be
Lisa, I can't see anything. Lisa?
You can't see anything. Could you all see anything?
I can see it, but I can't hear it.
Anybody else having that problem?
Same.
No sound.
Yeah.
no
See it, but
sound.
we can't hear it.
Okay, let's start over.
Get a redo here because
Redo.
you've got to
I
do that.
I didn't press that and press that.
Okay.
Okay, let's start over. Can you see it?
Yes, I can
I'm
see
gonna
it.
start from here then.
My name is Kristin Rehder, and I am a documentary photographer. I'm proud to be part of a long tradition of photography in the Adirondacks. I think many of us, when we think about the early photography in that part of the country, think about Seneca Ray Stoddard. The work that I do is really different, but it comes from a sense of place. And that sense of place is very special. The Adirondacks present themselves to photographers in a unique way because of the topography, because of the history, because of all the things that make them what they are. When I decided to do a project in the Adirondacks, it was natural for me to want to shoot on the river that I loved, that I lived on. I shot for 2 years on the Oswegatchie River. The result was about 20 to 25 images that became Through the Narrows, meditations on an Adirondack river. When you shoot in black and white, you're looking for something different from color. You're looking for light, first of all, because that's what photography is. It's light drawing, that's what it means. So you look for light, you're looking for pattern, you're looking for texture, you're looking for contrast, and you're looking for very strong composition. When I got Parkinson's, everything that I knew about focusing and a still camera and clarity of image, all of that went out the window. So for a long time, I just pushed this away because I just didn't know what to do with it in relation to my art. And then one day, a friend of mine suggested that we do some Qigong together in the park. And when I went out, I held my hand up to feel the wind and to chase the light. And my hand was doing what this service fairy is doing. And I realized that I could do something with the camera that might illustrate what it was like to be part of the changeable quality of nature, the movement of nature. I experimented a little bit with allowing a slow shutter speed, allowing my tremor to guide the camera. What happens for me when I see it is a new way of understanding this and myself. It's not a disability, it's a possibility. Come on. I've learned to look when the water is sparkling like that. Something magical is going to happen. I'm trying to block this very harsh light out, and I'm trying to isolate these beautiful little new leaves. I'm not trying to get something that's precise or identifiable. I'm trying to get motion and change and energy. It's all about energy.
Great. Okay, I need to get back to my PowerPoint. Hmm. Can you hear me, Lisa?
Yes. Do you see that, the green button down at the bottom again?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. Okay. Okay, folks, we're almost at the end, and I want to invite some questions and discussion if possible, but I'd like to take you through the last project that I did, the most recent, which was this summer. I had so much fun doing the first Tremor project, and that project, I've been lucky. My images often show and exhibit, and that project did show in Lancaster at the museum here and showed in Richmond, Virginia, and it's going to show up at St. Lawrence University in next fall with two other photographers who also have Parkinson's. When we went out to the island, which we do every summer, when we went out there this summer, I had a dream of creating a Tremor 2. And Tremor 2 was different because instead of shooting within a confined space behind the house, I wanted to shoot the whole island. And I set the goal of shooting the island in 3 to 4 weeks and having my printer print the images, and then we hung them up as a pop-up exhibit at the library on the island. There are many people on the island who actually have Parkinson's. And so people were able to see this work, and it's different. I think you'll see that it's different. Some of the subjects are the same, but these projects have a mind of their own, and things happen. You know, the full moon rendered itself this way. It looked completely different in the other project. This is light falling on the meadow right at sunset. This is the beautiful forest. I love the idea of forest bathing for all of us. It's so important. This is the beautiful fir forest that's on its way up to our cabin on our road. Lisa, I think Lisa and Steph incorporated this in the advanced material about the talk. This is a sunset, the reflection of the sun in the water at a beach called Agate Beach. This was the first photograph I made when I went to the island this summer. This is the forest going down to a place called Spencer Spit, and this is the sunset on the cliffs behind. This is lichen on one of the rocks down at a bay. This is a heron. I call this the spirit heron. This is a friend's garden. This picture is very important to me. It's a rock cavern where the water comes in on the high tide. It's a dark image, as you see. It's a rich image. And I think that when we're talking about Parkinson's and we're trying to create art and work around the idea of Parkinson's, that we have to acknowledge that, you know, we are sometimes deep in our souls, we're sometimes deep in our thoughts and deep in our fears, but the water's coming in. There's still light there. There's movement. There's beauty. There's a rawness and a richness. And this is one of the fields looking out through the wheat and through the patterns of the fields into the distance. This is my website, and if you go on it and choose Parkinson's, you can see all of the images that are part of Tremor, the main Tremor and Tremor 2. I don't sell my work. It's as a documentary photographer, I don't want to sell my work because it would change how I shoot, I feel. So I don't offer my images for sale. But you are welcome to go on my site anytime and join me in loving this natural environment. So time now for a few questions and some discussion.
Wow, this is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing this. Had such creativity.
Stop the share, yeah.
And we'll stop sharing your screen so that we can actually see you and that you can see us.
Okay.
We do have a question in the chat there. Someone had asked, explain the camera takes the picture.
Well, the tremor, the camera, and Kristin and nature take the picture is what I was trying to convey. So I can't control the tremor. So it's really the tremor on the camera moving at its own will and allowing the mystery of that, allowing the magic of that to occur. I can see what happened a little bit when I actually check in the viewfinder, when I review the image, when I'm out in the field, I can see what happened, can see vaguely whether I'm getting what I want, but I don't really know until I get in and download the images and take a look at them. So I've given up control, which is so important to me as a person with Parkinson's. You know, there's an analogy there that I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, any other questions? Or sometimes we, you know, if you want to raise your hand, we can take a question.
Or if you'd like to unmute, you may do
unmute.
that as well. I did have,
Go
you have
ahead.
questions? You go, and then I'll go.
I have a question. You know, you talk a lot about change. You saw this photograph and it changed you, and then you saw this other thing and it changed you. Why is it that when you got the Parkinson's, you didn't think about, well, should I change careers?
Well, yes. So my Parkinson's came after I retired from being a writer and editor. So the Parkinson's and everything that followed was just related to my passion for photography. So the question was, how can I continue to be a photographer, which is at my soul. It's at my center. So just trying to become a photographer with Parkinson's.
I love that you didn't change, you just took what came and, well, you did change because you changed your style of photography, but you're still a photographer. But I also love that you, I guess, has the Parkinson's diagnosis changed your desire for learning? Because it seems like you're still wanting to learn and change, and that has not stopped you.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think some of my teachers would question whether I was devoted to learning early on because I misbehaved so much. But I'm a learner. We are all in one way or another learners. And Parkinson's has so much to teach us about who we are and about who our community is, who each of us is within our community and who we are in the world. We're always learning, aren't we?
Yes. There's a question here. Is your tremor only in your left hand?
My tremor used to be only in my left hand. It's now in my mouth, in my face, which you can't see. It's not prominent. And it goes up my arm. So my whole arm shakes from vibrating in the hand. And when I get tired or cold, my whole body shakes.
Right.
Another question is, this is a big one. Did you ever feel like giving up?
Yes. I can't imagine I played 3 varsity sports in college for 4 years and majored in English literature. I'm a jock. And I can't really move now. I can't really run. I can do some things. I play tournament level ping pong. But my identity was based in my writing, which is hard for me to do now, my photography, my sports. I've had to move toward my spiritual side. I've had to move toward my friendships. I've had to move toward my understanding of nature. And it's been hard because I was so identified with who I was before Parkinson's, and everyone knew me as an athlete. And it's so challenging, isn't it, to just try to figure out, now I have this, I'm going to keep living. Who am I? And there were some dark times, and there have been some dark times. But my images brighten me. My images give me joy. What happens out in nature is wonderful for me. And I'm also called to share who I am with other people, and I have to be here. I have to be present. I have to find my energy. I have to find my focus in order to be able to share.
That's so inspiring that you were able to do that. I did have a question for myself. How did people receive your photographs after you were diagnosed with Parkinson's?
Well, amazingly. So many of the people who came to see the first Tremor project, which we showed last fall at the museum here at the college, many people were surprised to see the work because it's so different from what I was doing. The same museum 6 years ago had the refugee project. And now they're seeing the Tremor work and they're just saying, wow, Kristin, this is very, very different. You surprised us. But they love the work. The work is gorgeous. it's a problem that it's so beautiful. Because people are just so drawn to it, you know, it's just it's easy just to stand and look at it and say, oh gosh, this is just stunning, without understanding exactly what's going on there, the metamorphosis that's taking place between the tremor and the image. But that's okay. People see art in their own way.
I was just going to say, just that's a perception of art.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Somebody else had asked, couldn't you shoot with your other hand rather than changing your style?
Well, actually, it takes two hands for me to shoot with the camera that I shoot with. And it would be possible to do a couple of things. One is to shoot with a very high speed setting, which will allow me to overcome some of the camera shake, or I could put the camera on a tripod, or I could shoot with a lighter weight camera. But those things don't render an image that I can actually take up to 2 feet by 3 feet and put on the wall and show in a way that these images are shown. So I've chosen to adapt, sorry, I moved my computer. I've chosen to adapt what I shoot and how I shoot it instead of adapting my equipment.
I love that. You clearly are adaptable.
Absolutely.
Impressionable, you said, but adaptable too. I mean, you have two passions, your sport and your art, and you've taken both of them. One, maybe you're not the, was it 4-letter sports, four varsity sports, but you're a competitive ping pong player. So still, you've maintained that passion. You've just adapted it, and clearly with your photography as well.
Absolutely.
Really amazing.
So there's so many comments coming in. Thank you so much. Your work is truly exquisite, beautiful pictures, people saying that they're very pleased that you continued with your photography and that it's incredible. Another question, at how many years ago were you diagnosed? And that was in 2019, so 5.
Yes.
And do we have any other questions? Kristin, this is truly amazing and inspiring.
Feel free to unmute if
anyone can unmute. This has been a wonderful presentation, and I'd say probably one of the most creative that we've seen thus far.
Not even creative. It just really, I'm going to hold on, I'm going to spotlight us.
Okay, add the spotlight. Okay.
I just feel like this really encompasses so much. It's beauty, it's energy, it's art, it's movement, it's body, it's light. It is so many more things than just, photography or just Parkinson's. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
So much of
Absolutely.
yourself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Very
You
uplifting.
are all a gift to me, and thank you for PD Connect and everything that you're doing, for leaning into wonder and energy and possibility. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
that.
Kristin.
Thank
What a
you.
work.
You.
Thanks,
This has
everybody.
Very
been
special.
incredible, and you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Lots of
being
love.
here. And thank you all
Okay.
for being here. Don't forget, check us out. We're PD Connect, pd-connect.org. Yep, it's right there. You can check us out anytime. Join us. We have a speaker series that you're probably watching right now, and you can join us for exercise and education.
Yeah, and all of our speaker series are usually on YouTube, so you can watch the reruns
100 times.
You can watch them 1,000 times.
We got to put some bloopers up there, though. Anyway, the point is, thank you so much for joining us, Kristin. You rocked the house. That was so cool. You're cool, and your artwork is amazing. And we couldn't be more happy that you were here today with us. So thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Very nice.
Bye.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you.